And I'm back with part 2 of what have we learned in week 1. Now, I've already gone over the first, I would say the majority of the games, the early games. Now we're going to go ahead and get into the late games. The late games, the Sunday night game, and the Monday night doubleheaders. So, without further ado, we'll go ahead and start with the NFC West rival Seahawks-Cardinals game. Now, I predicted that the Seahawks had a better chance of winning this game. I thought it was going to be a close game. I thought because it's two rivals that they play each other tight. There's haven't really been a blowout between these two teams in a while. I thought the Seahawks were going to beat them. The Cardinals thought otherwise. I got this prediction wrong. The Seahawks, even with a gift-wrapped bad ref call and giving them an extra timeout, they still couldn't get it done. Russell Wilson was the starting QB. He used the other rookie QB, third-round pick out of Wisconsin that got to start in the game. Not bad, but not good either. He did have a touchdown pass in the game. He threw to Sidney Rice. But other than that, there really wasn't much to go on as far as what the Seahawks are. The Seahawks are kind of a bipolar team. You don't know what team you're going to get with the Seahawks. You can get the one that can just dominate you in all phases of the game as far as defense and a powerful running game, or if they're at home, they'll just run wild on you. But then you'll get a team like this that just looks like they don't have anything going for them. They just don't have it together. So, and the receiver that they decided to keep over Terrell Owens, Braylon Edwards, had a chance to win the game for him and couldn't catch the pass. So, what we learned with the Seahawks is that they are who they are, and they are a jumbled mess. Getting Marshawn Lynch healthy and getting him going, that should help. Russell Wilson, obviously he did very well in the preseason. Like I said, use preseason analysis at your own risk. But he's gonna have his work cut out for him because next week they have the Cowboys coming to Seattle. Now, like I said, Seattle Seahawks, you don't know what you're gonna get with them. I mean, they are a random mixed bag. So the Seahawks that you saw play against the Cardinals, if you did watch them, it's going to be a totally different team you're going to watch playing when they play in front of that home crowd in Seattle. So we learned from the Seahawks that they have a rookie QB that's going to be going through some things and getting acclimated to the speed of the NFL. The Cardinals, on the other hand, are the other team that's a jumbled mess, and it's thanks to their QB position. John Skelton, was their starting QB. He gets hurt. So the QB that they blew $60+ million on that became a backup had to come in and pretty much save the day. They still are a mess completely. And what we learned from the Cardinals is that they have absolutely, we all knew this, they have absolutely no stability at the QB position. They have absolutely none. Now, you can't get a good rapport going on offense if you're going from one QB's mannerisms and mechanics to another QB's, because Skelton's going to be out for about 2 to 4 weeks with an ankle injury, and then they got to deal with Cobb. They got Cobb to run with. So when Skelton comes back, he may be thrown back in the starting position, and they got to keep doing this getting to know each other better thing once again. So I predicted the Seahawks would win. Cardinals won. I was wrong on this one. I was also wrong on the next game that I'm getting ready to talk about, the Carolina Panthers versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I thought that Cam Newton was going to have a field day like he did against the Buccaneers last season. Oops. As it turns out, the Buccaneers just needed a little structure, a little organization, and a lot of discipline, because it was discipline from head coach Greg Schiano that tightened this team up. And they won with what they normally used to win with when they were under Dungy and under Gruden, their defense. They beat the Carolina Panthers 16-10. I was wrong on that prediction. Cam Newton, bad game. Threw some careless picks. They really took him out of his element. But I think the alarming concern, much like the Tennessee Titans, was what the fuck happened to their running game? You have D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart, and the run game was non-existent. On the other side of the coin here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, discipline. That defense got it done for him. Safety Mark Barron laid Steve Smith out. Steve Smith is tough, so he got back up, but that hit he took going off that sidelines from Barron. I think the Buccaneers got an heir to the John Lynch throne that they had, because he looks like he can be a very, very notorious hitter for that defense. But this is what it was. There was Josh Freeman, pedestrian effort, but he didn't make the mistakes like Cam Newton made. The defense held the Panthers' offense in check completely. But it was a defensive battle back and forth because, there's only 26 points combined in this game. But the Buccaneers did a lot more. And they finally became that defensive team that they spent all these draft picks on. Gerald McCoy, Adrian Claiborne. They spent all these draft picks shoring up that front four. And now that there's a chance that they can actually be something competent. What have we learned? The Panthers better find their running game, or Cam might be going through a sophomore slump. But I think what we learned here is that in this league, it doesn't matter how much you pass, you have to have a running game to draw defenses close to the box. You have to have a running game to make the defenses respect you enough to where they're only putting in single-man coverage on the receivers on the outside. That's what we learned from the Panthers. What we learned from the Buccaneers, the defense looks a lot more disciplined. The defense looks a lot more organized. They had a much better fight in them than what we saw last season, or even in the 2010 season when they went 10-6. So, and then Doug Martin, rookie running back out of Boise State, he had a pretty good game too. So they have a running game to help out Josh Freeman to get him back in rhythm from a very bad 2011 season. What we learned from the Buccaneers is that if that defense stays as stout as they did against the Panthers, they'll be right back in the mix in a very competitive NFC South with the Saints and the Falcons and the Buccaneers, or the Panthers, excuse me. So, having said that, we'll go to the game that this was the game that everybody was wanting to see. This was the marquee game of Week 1. The San Francisco 49ers versus the Green Bay Packers. Now, I said it was going to be a close game, and I said that the Packers would edge them out. The 49ers ended up winning. I got that pick wrong. And side note, as a Niners fan, I'm glad I got that one wrong. I watched the game. So, what we learned from we'll start with the 49ers first. What we learned is that Alex Smith has a better grasp of that offense. For the first time in his career, he has a head coach and an offensive coordinator that he's familiar with. If you've truly followed his path since he's been in the NFL, and not just saying, oh, he's been a bust and things like that, and I've said that without thoroughly just looking at what he's had to deal with. He's had 3 head coaches, if you count Harbaugh, 7 offensive coordinators, if you count Greg Roman, and he's been in the league for 8 years. So he had a different offensive coordinator every year he was in the league. There's no continuity. Having to learn new terminology, having to learn new formations and things of that nature. And then you've got 2 head coaches that really didn't believe in him and that really didn't respect him and that just really talked bad about him in public. But Harbaugh last season sat him down and instilled and restored his confidence. Now he has that confidence. Now he has a better grasp of an offense that he actually gets to run that he's known since last season. What we know about the Niners is that their defense is still their defense. That's still a top 10, not even a top 10, that's still a top 5 defense, period. All 11 starters are back. And that defense is still one of the better defenses in the league. And this isn't even the homer talk here. You watch them play, you know that that defense is stout. We also know that David Akers is thoroughly cementing himself as one of the best kickers in the league. I mean, for goodness sake, that kick was a prayer. It was a doinker. But he put himself in the record books next to Dempsey and Jason Elam and Sebastian Janikowski, who did it last season, a 63-yard field goal. We learned that the Niners' run game and their offensive line is a lot better as far as the run game goes, as far as run protection, and to a certain extent pass protection. Even though they did give up some sacks, it was more Clay Matthews than anything, going one-on-one with Joe Staley, who definitely didn't have one of his better games. But I digress. That run game was something nasty. But that's what the 49ers offensive scheme is. That's what we've learned, what we've known from last season. But what we know from week 1, truly, Alex Smith distributed the ball to his receivers. He wasn't just relying on Vernon Davis. Randy Moss, Mario Manningham, Michael Crabtree. He was getting the ball. He wasn't just dinking and dunking. He was getting the ball out in intermediate passing routes and outs and slants and digs. He had complete control of that offense with more confidence than I've ever seen him have since he's been a 49er. The Packers, on the other hand, what we know about the Green Bay Packers, their defense is still a problem. Their defense is something they still need to work on. Because as much as everybody likes to talk about Alex Smith is not exactly a upper tier elite QB, middle of the pack, but they made him look upper tier. For him dissecting them for 20 of 26, he completed almost 80% of his. He completed over 75% of his passes with no interceptions, no turnovers. So that defense is still a problem. What we also know about the Packers is Randall Cobb is getting ready to be Aaron Rodgers' go-to guy. Now, the refs basically gift wrapped a punt return for Randall Cobb, but that doesn't for lack of a better, that doesn't disrespect the fact that Randall Cobb played lights out as a receiver, as a return man. He was Aaron Rodgers' go-to guy. So offensively, for the Packers, Aaron Rodgers and his receivers, they're still going to do what they're going to do. What we also know about the Packers, they still got problems in the run game. Cedric Benson, but granted, they went up against the number 1 rush defense in the league from last season. And it's going to be a problem when Aaron Rodgers is their leading rusher again. Because if you can recall the game against the Giants in the postseason divisional round, Aaron Rodgers was the leading rusher for the Packers in that game. So outside of the fact they ran up against the league's number 1 rush defense from last year, that running game is still an issue. They let Ryan Grant go. They figured Cedric Benson was going to be the hard-nosed runner, the grinder in the middle, pushing the pile, pushing the lines. 9 carries, 18 yards. Oops. Running game's still a problem. Like I said, these are still 2 elite teams in the NFC. These are 2 very talented teams in the NFC. Green Bay's not out of it. They just ran up against a more motivated squad than the 49ers. Like I said, Alex Smith, the way he ran that offense was something that few Niners fans or any NFL fan have ever has seen. And I'm not counting what he did in his heroics against the Saints. I'm talking just complete game. He did an extremely wonderful job. And that's just a homer talk right there. But the fact is, that was a totally different Alex Smith. The Packers are still going to get their points. They're still going to get their offense up and down that field. But the defense, they need to tighten up. They were the league's worst defense. They spent all those draft picks on defense and still look bad. So what we learned from them, they got some work to do still on that defense. Secondary, pass rush outside of Clay Matthews. He was the bright spot on that defense. But having said that, like I said, I got the prediction wrong, but I'm kind of glad. Not even mad. As a Niners fan, hey, glad I got that one wrong. So, moving forward, we'll talk about the Sunday night game. The Sunday night game, the return of one Peyton Manning. After sitting out an entire season with a bad neck, he returns in Broncos orange and blue to take on the team that was eliminated by the Broncos with Tim Tebow as the QB in the wild card postseason game, the Pittsburgh Steelers. What have we learned from this game? Peyton Manning is Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's going to do what Peyton Manning wants to do. He will take you out of a game as a secondary member of an opposing defense he faces. He still looked like the Peyton Manning that was running things in Indy. So, the Broncos, that was money well spent. As far as week 1 goes, money well spent bringing in Peyton Manning. Those receivers looked excited. They were rejuvenated. They enjoyed catching those passes from him. And having a competent quarterback. Well, really an elite quarterback throwing the ball to them. And that defense is still nasty. The defense is still great with Doom and Von Miller. Defense is still good. What we know about the Steelers, they still got some issues. They definitely still got some issues here because Broncos pretty much did what they wanted to do with them. Roethlisberger made some careless mistakes in that game. And I predicted that the Steelers would get revenge. And I was proven wrong on that. Thank you, Peyton Manning, for proving me wrong. But what have we learned? Roethlisberger needs to cut down on the turnovers. I just think that. But maybe they just went up against an emotionally charged Peyton Manning. I wouldn't even say that because he's not really one of those rah-rah type of guys. He just goes in, clocks in, locks in, takes you down. That's it. So we'll just consider this an aberration. They didn't have Ike Taylor again because of his medical condition and what the mile high altitude air would do to his body. So again, they were without one of their key players on defense. But defensively, Peyton Manning shredded them. So they got their work cut out for them. They're still one of the top teams in the league, but I think that age is starting to creep up on them just a little bit. So we'll move forward from that, and we'll talk about the 2 Monday night games. I predicted that the Ravens would beat the Bengals because they were at home. I was right. I just didn't know that they were going to beat the shit out of the Bengals at home. Wow. What we learned from the Ravens, Flacco really wants to be that elite QB. 299 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He marched that team down the field with reckless abandon. Ray Rice was Ray Rice. And that defense, they didn't miss a beat with Terrell Suggs out. They still imposed their will on the Bengals. That is going to be one of the top teams in the AFC. You got the Patriots, the Ravens, and the Texans, I think, are the best 3 teams in the AFC right now. And that's not just going off of week 1. This is just going off of what they did going into the postseason last season. And their validation of what my prediction is from what they did in week 1. Ed Reed is now the career leader in interception return yards, and he got a pick 6 on that on top of that. One of the best safeties I've ever witnessed in my life, not named Ronnie Lott. Ed Reed is a Hall of Famer for sure. What we know about the Bengals, what we learned about the Bengals, for a half, they were competitive. For a half, they were in the fight. And then the wheels just fell off. That offensive line was getting manhandled by Haloti Ngata, which led to Dalton making some careless mistakes, fumbles lost, a pick 6. They just couldn't get off the field. Defensively, they couldn't get off the field. Taylor Mays, who was a Niner and who was a complete bust with the Niners, he's a complete bust with the Bengals. Careless penalties, careless mistakes. They look like a young team, and they were taken to the woodshed in this game. Do they still have the talent offensively? Yes. Andy Dalton and A.J. Green were still doing great things. But I think they learned quick, fast, in a hurry that the Steelers and the Ravens still run that division. And they've got a lot of work to do. They got a lot of film to watch on that game and figure out just where they went wrong with that. Because they got to see the Ravens again. They can't let that happen to them again. So, the final game that I'm going to talk about, the Chargers and the Raiders. I picked the Raiders to squeak out a victory on this one. I was wrong on this one. Chargers, they just played better. Phillip Rivers played a lot better. Straight up. What we learned about the Chargers is that Phillip Rivers, when he's good, and he's not the interception machine that he was last season, the Chargers are in any game. Straight up. What we learned from the Raiders, outside of Darren McFadden, and outside of y'all need some long snapper help. Special teams, man, kill you every time. But Darren McFadden, he looked a lot better. They want him to be the workhorse, and he took it in stride. He was able to get the touches. He didn't rush for many good yards. He didn't rush for many yards, but the catches or the passes he caught out of the backfield, he made some moves. He showed that he has elite talent as a running back. And what we learned is that new head coach for the Raiders, they got to tighten up. There's a lot of things they got to tighten up on, especially in special teams. But and also Sebastian Janikowski, 50-yard field goals. He still got that leg, but their offense stalled big time, and if they're going to compete in a very, very, I'm not even going to say weak, because NFC West got that whole moniker for being weak too. I say moderately competitive AFC West. No team went. No team. Matter of fact, I don't even think a team had a winning record in the AFC West. But which goes to show you, it's a four-man race. So to be competitive in a division that really has no clear-cut winner, you can't have mistakes like y'all made, Raiders, with special teams. You can't do that. And that offense has got to speed up. Because with the Broncos having Peyton Manning, with the Chargers having Phillip Rivers cutting down on his mistakes, and the Chiefs, although they got ran out of their own building, having Jamal Charles back and really having that team back, and Matt Castle playing better than he played last season or the season before. The Raiders, they're gonna have a fight. They're gonna have a huge fight trying to be one of the top dogs in that division. So, what have we learned from Week 1 overall? I went 7-9 in my predictions. Now, if I was in NFC West in 2010, that would have won me the division. So, can't be too mad about that. But I need to, basically a lot of teams came out and proved me and a lot of other analysts wrong. RG3 looks great. The Jets shut up a lot of critics, at least for this week, about them not being able to generate any offense in the end zone. The Niners are for real going to a territory that they haven't won in over 20 plus years, in over 20 years. And they beat an elite team at their house. The Cowboys, with their investment in the secondary, paid dividends, I think. The Rams secondary upgrade paid dividends, even though they fell short. The Eagles have some serious issues. The Browns are still the Browns. They suck. The Falcons are looking to shed their image of not getting it done when it counts, and they took a massive step in Week 1. A couple other things I've noticed. I really honestly say, and Joe Flacco is doing the same thing about people scoffing at him, saying that he feels he's an elite QB. But what we learned from Week 1 is that the dominant are the dominant ones, and that's the Patriots, the Ravens, Niners, and really the teams that are terrible, they're just terrible. Browns, I mean, we saw that coming, but and the Texans. Can't leave the Texans out of being dominant, because they've earned that right at this point. I think they're one of the top 5 teams in the league right now, straight up. Now, preseason-wise, I said they were 7 or 8. I have to look that up again, but they're moving up. The way they played, they're definitely at the top of the heap right now, or at least in the mix. And Peyton Manning is back, ladies and gentlemen. So AFC West is on notice. The AFC is on notice. Get ready. And these rookie QBs, RG3, Luck. RG3 got the better of the stats in the pub, and his team actually won. Luck, think he'll tighten up once he has a home game. Tannehill, Russell Wilson, and Whedon, I think they are going to have some. I think they're going to have some serious, I'll say it, growing pains this season. And really, I'm just glad that football is truly back. I'm really excited about this blog, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm really happy that I'm able to do something that I love to do and talk about a sport that I love with all my heart. I love football. Love everything about it. I do a college blog, but that's just too much work. But the NFL has always been number one to me, and it will forever be number one to me. And who knows? Maybe I'll even throw in some fantasy talk in there. But thank you for those that are watching this. Thank you for the support. Thank you for encouraging me to do this. And I'm having fun with this. Like I said, this is my inaugural year. And obviously I'll look at what I need to do better. I'll look at what I can, bring creatively to my blog, and as far as video analysis and find other fun ways to make this blog really click. So having said that, I hope everybody that's watching this, you have a wonderful day, morning, afternoon, evening, weekend, wherever you are, and thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.